And so for this video, I just want to show you guys quickly how to make a scatter plot and just do this example. And so I'm actually doing an example from your textbook. If we look at the example that's on page 443 of the textbook, this is one of these how are you doing questions. So we're making a scatter plot, and we're making this scatter plot or scatter diagram is another term that we could use for this. And we have this particular data set here. So I'm going to, we have person A, B, C, and D. And we know when we're doing a correlation or a scatter plot, we're going to have two scores for each person. So we have an X score here and a Y score here. And so these two variables are variables that we've tested people on. We have two measurements, two different variables for each person in our test. And so person A has a score of 3 on variable X and 4 on variable Y. B is 6 and 7, 1 and 2, and 4 and 6. And so when I'm making my scatter plot, I'm going to make sure to pull up my scatter plot instructions here. And we always want to go back to our instructions, make sure that we know what we're doing step by step, that we're practicing this, have those instructions available to you. So we want to make sure that we use them when we can, certainly if we don't remember them by heart yet, which it's okay if you don't yet. And so the first step is we're going to draw the axis. We're going to decide which variable goes on which axis. And so I'm going to put X down here and Y over here. In some situations, we might feel like one makes more sense on one axis. We're not going to go too much into that at this point. We're going to determine the range of the values to use for each variable, and we're going to mark those on our axis as well. We're going to remember that our numbers go from low to high where the axis meets. So low is going to be over here, and high is going to be this way, low this way, and high up here. And so for this range of scores, these numbers all fall between 1 and 7. So I could use that as my scale. So 0 is going to be here in the corner. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to number those. And I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And just doing the best you can to keep these intervals as even as you can, both with the ones on the other marks on the same axis, and as consistent as we can with the other axis. But again, it doesn't have to be perfect. You guys know that I'm definitely not an artist. My lines are definitely not straight, and that's okay as long as it's very clear what we're trying to do, things are labeled properly. And so the next thing that we're going to do now is we're going to make a dot for each pair of scores. And this is going to be, we're going to do this, make one dot for each pair of scores that we have for each row. And so we're going to find the place on the horizontal axis for the score for the horizontal axis variables. So we're going to start with person A here, and this X variable is what I have on this horizontal axis, this X-axis. And so our score is 3 here, so I'm going to move over to number 3. And then we're going to move up to the height for the score for the vertical axis. So here our Y variable here is 4. And so I'm going to go up to 4. And so that I'm going to plot my first dot, and I kind of made a little trail there. So that was just a mistake, but I could leave that in here. I could wipe that out, but I'll just leave that. It's just a faint little line as I was going up to that variable. And so we could see, actually, I could just kind of show that we went up, we went over, and then we went up, essentially. And so that would be 3, 4. So we'll do the same for the next. So for B, person B, our value is 6 on the x-axis, and it's 7 for the y-axis. I make sure I'm keeping those as in line as possible here. 1 and 2 is person C, and then person D is 4 and 6. And so now I have my, again, this isn't the prettiest scatter plot that I could have made, but I have my 4 points here that are graphed. And so this, my scatter plot is complete. And if I look at the example on page 443 of what this is supposed to look like, it looks pretty similar. So we did a pretty decent job here. And so this is how you make a scatter plot.